Investigational COVID-19 convalescent plasma. This is under emergency investigational new drug. So one investigational treatment being explored for COVID-19 involves the use of convalescent plasma collected from the recovered COVID-19 patients. It is possible that the convalescent plasma that contains antibodies to SARS-CoV-2, that is the virus that causes COVID-19, might be effective against the infection. And the use of this convalescent plasma has been studied in outbreak of other respiratory infections, including 2009 to 2010 H1N1 influenza virus pandemic, 2003 SARS-CoV-1 epidemic, and the 2012 MERS-CoV epidemic. Although promising, convalescent plasma has not been shown to be effective in every disease studied. It is therefore important to determine through clinical trials before routinely administered convalescent plasma to patients with COVID-19 that it is safe and effective to do so, which means it is still under investigation. But if the patient is under life-threatening condition, yes, FDA recommends to use this. That is the reason it is under investigational trials. Investigators wishing to study the use of the convalescent plasma are encouraged to submit requests to FDA for investigational use under the traditional investigational new drug regulatory pathway. What this pathway explains: even though the FDA doesn't approve this drug, in emergency conditions you have to give an application to the FDA, and FDA will say that yes, you can use this drug because the patient is in life-threatening or very critical condition. The clinical trials are still going on this, because the participation on the clinical trials in one way for the patients to obtain access to convalescent plasma, these may not be readily available to all the patients in potential need because they are still under the trial. Therefore, given the public health emergency that the expanding COVID-19 outbreak presents, while the clinical trials are being conducted, FDA is facilitating to access to COVID-19 convalescent plasma for the use in patients with serious or immediately life-threatening COVID-19 infections through the process of single patient emergency investigational new drug applications called as INDs, especially for individual patients under 21 CFR 312.310 regulatory pathway. So this process allows the use of an investigational drug for the treatment of an individual patient by a licensed physician upon FDA authorization. And this does not include the use of COVID-19 convalescent plasma for the prevention of the infection. It can only be recommended for the very, very critical patients who are life-threatening patients, we can say. So healthcare providers interested in the emergency use of investigational COVID-19 convalescent plasma under a single patient emergency investigational new drug protocol should be considered the following, what you can see over here. So whenever we are giving the COVID-19 convalescent plasma, that must be collected from the recovered individuals if they are eligible to donate blood. And required testing must be performed and the donation must be found suitable. And additional considerations for the donor eligibility should be addressed, that is prior diagnosis of COVID-19 documented by the laboratory test, and complete resolution of symptoms at least 14 days prior to the donation, and female donors negative for HLA antibodies or male donors, negative results for COVID-19 either from one or more nasopharyngeal swab specimen or by a molecular diagnostic test from blood. So all these are important protocols which need to be considered whenever we are selecting a donor. Eligible patients for use under expanded access provisions must have laboratory confirmed COVID-19 and must have severe or immediately life-threatening COVID-19. For example, how can we say that the disease is severe? Severe disease is defined as a patient having dyspnea and respiratory frequency which is greater than 30 per minute, and blood oxygen saturation is less than or equal to 93%. And the partial pressure of arterial oxygen to fraction of inspired oxygen ratio is less than 300, and or lung infiltrates are greater than 50% within 24 to 48 hours. These are the patients, we'll call it as the patients who are suffering from severe disease. and what category of the patient comes under life-threatening disease. Life-threatening disease includes respiratory failure, septic shock, or multiple organ dysfunction or failure, and must provide informed consent. So this is what you have to consider whenever you are giving this convalescent plasma to the patients.